Welcome to Marathon Champions, the podcast where running legends Benji Durden, Bill Rogers, and Ron Tabb share their timeless wisdom on marathon training and inspire listeners with their wealth of experience. These champions continue to impact the running world today.
Welcome, Ruth. We're glad to have you.
Good to see you.
So how are things?
Pretty good.
So you really don't fit the marathon category, but
I started one once.
You started one? Which one did you start?
Well, my dad was a masters runner, and every year he ran Santa Barbara, which actually is a kind of hilly one. And the one year, there's a gal, Doreen Asuma. I don't know if you remember that name at all, but Doreen and I were teammates on the Rialto Roadrunners, and we were going with my dad up there, and we decided to run, which was profoundly stupid because my long run, I don't know, maybe I'd run 10 miles once in my life. We were 14. And so the race started with a mile on the track, and because there's only so much room on the track. I mean, you're talking about a race with several hundred. It wasn't like now. So the early group, the slow group, started an hour ahead of the fast guys. And off we went. I think it started like 7:30 in the morning. And at some point down the road, my body woke up and I'm looking for a bathroom. And of course, you stop at that was probably about the half marathon, stop at the bathroom and try to hurry, which of course does you no good because what happens just a little further.
Yep.
And so I think I staggered on to about 18 miles. And I was kind of walking for a minute and somebody asked me if I wanted to ride to the finish. And I was like, yeah, you bet. 3:45. I do remember that.
Hey, Ruth, what was the longest race that you did run?
Half marathon.
Half marathon?
I did two.
What were your times?
Way back in 70, 78, I ran the Mission Bay half marathon. It was Craig Virgin's debut marathon. I remember that. And I ran 1:24, I think. And then in 98, I think it was, Indy Life had this Grand Prix for masters runners. And so you ran this whole series of races. There was a 5K, 8K, 10K, 10 mile, 15K, half marathon, marathon. And the marathon counted double points. It was, I think it was Twin Cities, if I remember right. And it was double points. So I knew if I was going to win this thing, I had to rack up points early on. And the first race was Indy Life half marathon, which was 1.5 points because they were the sponsor. So I was coming off a stress fracture in my foot. I'd been running for about less than a week, but I'd been running in the pool and stuff. But I kind of had to run this and get some points. And so I ran, I think, 1:19. And I remember finishing. It was cold. It was raining. You run out to the racetrack. The best part was running a lap around the Indy racetrack. And then as you're going back to town, you can see the finish miles away. It's raining. It's cold. It was awful. I got fourth. I got my points. I ended up winning the Grand Prix. It all worked out in the long run. But
it was a painful way to get it.
At that finish of that race, I called. He wanted me to call him. Tom wanted me to call him at the finish of the race, and I called him. And my first words were, "If I ever talk to you about maybe wanting to run a marathon, you remind me of this day."
Was that the Indy half that you did? Was that was that November? Because there's a marathon.
It was like May.
Oh, okay, yeah. I
think it was May.
I coached a few people that have run the Indy Marathon.
Yeah.
And they've had some really crappy weather.
And it was very cool after there were always certain road races I wanted to run. And of course, with a track season, I know one of them was Azalea Trail, one was Crescent City, one was Freihoffer's, Cascade Run. I mean, there were several. I thought, God, it would be cool to run these. And it was just never at a good time. So turning 40, I ran one last track season, but incorporated these road races. And then the next year did that Grand Prix. But it was almost starting a new running career. And the whole road race thing, like people were less catty, the women anyway. The people were less catty. Everybody was friends. You traveled to these races, ran into the same people all the time. I remember just having a blast with Jane Welzel and Kenny Rouse and Craig Young. I mean, it was great, but I got to do a lot of these runs that I kind of, wished I'd had the chance when I was younger. So it was like starting a new career, kind of.
So we know all about your running career, your track career. So when you decided to retire, it sounds like you retired a little bit after 40. Did you go on any type of motivational speaking tours, or did you coach at all after your running career? I know you had a son that you guys, he ran track and he had a pretty good career in high school, right?
Right, high school, college, yeah.
Yeah. And then
when I did a lot of speaking, obviously after 84 through the end of my running, and I mean, not that I tried to promote it or go on any kind of tour or anything, but did a fair amount of it. Clinics, awards banquets, various things. And then in 99, I think, I started teaching at the private school my son was attending, and they didn't have a track or cross country program, so I started those, which was very cool because it was a very small school, the smallest division in CIF, and it was kind of like you got to go back to the running that you did because you loved it and it was fun, and it was really cool to introduce the sport to young people who knew nothing of it. So that was pretty cool. And then after I left that school, I was assistant coach at a couple of high schools. It was frustrating. I enjoyed it, but sometimes it was frustrating to see kids that really have the talent and the potential that just wouldn't do what it took. People complaining about petty things and trying to negotiate workouts, and that part was a little frustrating. So I helped at a couple of different schools, mostly local ones that had, I think 2 of the times there were girls that had potential that just weren't getting any mentoring or anything. So kind of came on to mentor girls. And I enjoyed it, but like I said, it just wasn't, there were frustrations. And then it got to the point where, you coach cross country and track, you're coaching year round. So as I got a little older, it got kind of nice to have a summer vacation and Christmas break, be home for dinner, not get up at 5 a.m. on weekends for invitational. So
yeah, I had it from the other end. Amy and I were timers, and we'd get cross country season. Sleep was something we dreamed about while we were awake.
Yeah. Well, I actually had a stint in I think 2010 to 2016 when the economy was really bad. I was working just part-time in the school district, and money was getting tougher and tougher. And so I took a second job at a running store. And, again, it was a blast talking to local runners, helping people, advising. But, between my 2 jobs, I was working 6 days a week. Mostly, I'd go to work at the school in the morning, and then I'd go to the running store in the afternoon, and dinner would be like at 8 o'clock at night, and I'd work all day Saturday. And when I stopped working there, I was kind of like, God, this is great. I'm home for dinner. I have my weekends. So God bless the people that do coaching work in running stores.
That was the first time you worked at a running store?
What's that?
That was your first running store stint?
No, I actually had a very short stint. Well, actually there were one where when Tom and I were first together, I was looking for a part-time job, and there was a store called Second Soul. They had a
I remember those
stores, and I worked in one of those. That was a little short-lived. it wasn't the store I was working in wasn't particularly busy. It wasn't, wasn't that exciting. But also, way back when my ex-husband, my then husband, went to work for Lotions for Runners. He managed what was then their new store in the city of Orange, and got this idea to start a business putting on road races, timing road races, and all that. And so I was kind of involved in the stores, but I didn't actually work there. And then, of course, 70, I'm trying to remember when it was now, 79, I worked a couple years at Sub 4.
So, Ron, did you ever work at a running store?
Yeah, when I lived in Houston, Charlie and I moved down to Houston and right after college, and we hung gutters on homes to start off with because it gave us the time the time we needed to train. Because all of us, in '78, I started racing all over the country and was taking a lot of time away from the job. Owner of the gutter company gave me an ultimatum: or give up the running or give up the hanging the gutters. Well, that was an easy choice.
That was an easy choice.
So anyway, I had there was a guy. He owned a pharmaceutical company, and he wanted to open up a running store in Houston. And because of name recognition, they asked me if I'd be interested in working. And I ended up setting up the business for them and then becoming a partner. It's called the Running Shop. I did that until I moved to Oregon in 1980.
Interesting. I mean, we all three have histories with running stores. I mean, I've, worked at Philippides and was the warehouse manager for a time. And that was a choice of a lot of runners to, running stores were an obvious place to go, although the teaching school was another obvious place to go.
Yeah.
When I was first started running, I had private lessons on the piano, private lessons on the violin. I sang in a choir all through high school and stuff. And it was when I got to college, I realized, you can't do justice to the music thing and the running thing, and you kind of have to choose one.
Mm-hmm.
And my thought was music does not have a shelf life, but running does. I figured I could always go back to that. Little did I know at the time that I'd still be racing when I was in my 40s, but that love of music's always been there.
Yeah, I sort of a split between music and running too, and then realized finally in high school that I was a better runner than I was a musician. I mean, I was okay. I was first year French horn, but it was a pathetic band, and I really enjoyed the running a lot more than I enjoyed the practice of the band.
Yes. I realized that I had a certain amount of musical talent and I had an ability to read music. And because I could read music well and play it looking at the music, I was not very good at practicing because I could get away with it.
Yeah.
So at that point too, I would have had to have devoted myself a bit
Yeah,
more.
to be really good takes a lot of time.
Yeah. And I realized, it's funny because you talking about the French horn and distance runners in general, you look at their younger lives through high school and realize that many of them took on a lot of other things. And like, I don't see now that there was the hours in the day to do what I did, much less most of the time my parents carting me around places. But I was just sharing emails with somebody, my oldest brother went to Caltech and he ran a 1:50.800 at Caltech. But somebody was asking me about his college records, and I realized in high school he was the athlete of the year, the valedictorian, and he played in the marching band, which they had like a championship band that would go to these parades all the time. And I'm like,
Mhm.
how did you do all that? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I started running in California, and I played in the band, and we marched, and I mean, marching band was a big deal. I actually think marching was a benefit to my running.
Yeah.
And
Well, the
having
halftime shows, did you do the halftime shows at
well,
football
no, I was
games?
in junior high because
Oh, okay. Yeah.
and so in junior high we went we were one of the better junior high bands in the state. We went on trips, but the marching made our, because it was a high knee lift, and you had
Right.
and you had to do 9 to 5. You had to have, the right number of steps and stay in line, and so
Yeah.
it was physical discipline. Plus, playing a brass instrument, it helps your lungs, your ability
True.
to breathe.
Yeah.
But but part of it is, I think, in junior high and high school, you're trying to find what you're good at,
Yeah.
and you don't yet know what you're good at. I mean, you can pick out and say, okay, I'm going to be good at this, but it's not always right. You're too
Well, I know
young yet to
my
really
my
know.
son, and among many others, my oldest son loved baseball, and he would play, little league. He'd be the last one chosen on the team. And by the end of the season, the coach would say, I wish I had a whole team full of Michaels because he was so coachable. But he played his freshman year of high school and then realized I'm a better runner than baseball player. I guess I got to succumb to the family business. I don't know.
The disease. Well, I tried baseball for a bit, but this was before hard helmets.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and I had a couple of close shaves with a hard ball coming right by my head, and I finally said, this isn't really a safe
Yeah.
sport.
Steve Scott was a high school baseball player. I think he's a pitcher, if I remember right. But the running thing seemed to work out for him.
Yeah, he kind of did okay. So when did you really start becoming a star as a runner? In your
I guess
definition.
define stardom. I don't know. Very small star in a small world. I
Well,
don't know.
yeah,
But
but I mean, you begin to succeed to the point you realize,
yeah,
okay, I'm good at this.
I started running when I want to say I was about 10, and my dad was running Masters track. I had two older brothers that were running. We would go to these little all-comer meets, and my dad ended up at the end of these all-comer season, signed me up for a little local track club, and we'd work out, I think, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, do some intervals, go to races. And I think in my first ever then AAU race, I ran the 880 and got third place and got one of those little shield looking medals that they
Yep,
gave out at
yep.
every AAU race. I got a medal. I was hooked. And I ended up, actually, it ended up being kind of a funny story. My second race, we went up to Ventura, which is a couple-hour drive away, and I ran the 880, and the two girls that had beat me the week before weren't there. And as I was coming to the finish winning the race, the announcer was announcing that I had broken the national record for my age. I didn't know anybody paid any attention to what our times were, but
Well,
lowered it a few more times that year. And
What was the record?
yeah,
I ended up, and at age 11, I ran my final time was 2:30.2. And then we went to cross
how old,
country,
how old were you then?
11?
11.
11? Okay.
And then cross country was 3/4 of a mile for our age group. And we went to local races, and usually I would win the race, but the Rialto Road Runners would win the team. And we went to what was the district championships, which I won. They won the team. And the coach of the Roadrunners came to my dad and said, well, you guys are going to the state meet next week, right? And we're like, state meet? There's a state, like, really? What? And it was up in Sacramento. And my dad came up with enough money for the two of us to fly to Sacramento, run the race, and come home. We didn't even spend the night because we didn't have the money for a hotel. And I won the race. Rialto Roadrunners won the team. And this Dave Japs came to my dad again. He goes, in 2 weeks is the national championships. Your daughter should run that. And he said, where is it? Well, it's in Frederick, Maryland, which might as well have been the moon in those days.
Yep.
And he says, and my dad's like, yeah, there's no way that can happen. He goes, well, look, here's the deal. We're taking teams back, age group teams, and we're staying in private housing. And what's one more runner? She can come with us if you just come up with a plane ticket for her. So my dad went to the local Rotary, and I think some of his coworkers pitched in, came in with the money for this plane ticket. And it's hilarious now as a mom to think of this 11-year-old girl getting on a plane with this coach who's talked to us a few times and his team of runners and flying across the country but I won the race. The Roadrunners won the team, but I remember distinctly meeting Doris Brown. This was
Oh,
1968.
oh yeah, that
And
would have been
here was
cool.
this woman who won the race, was world champion, and had an Olympic medal from that. I mean, it was just like I was in absolute awe
Yeah,
of that.
she was definitely the person.
Yeah. So to become friends with her later was, it's been quite a treat.
So
Oh, but
then,
anyway, oh yeah, getting back to I don't tell short stories, sorry.
yeah, well, that's
But
all right.
in high school, I trained, well, my dad coached me for a while, so I ended up joining the Roadrunners, but they were an hour away. So my dad would coach me with the computerized running tables book. Of course,
Yeah,
yeah, we'd go for runs and he'd plan interval workouts. And then on the weekends, a lot of weekends, they would drive me out to Rialto and I'd spend the night there. I'd spend the weekend, and run with them some and come back. So my junior year of high school, I got a call from Chuck Debus, the infamous Chuck Debus,
yeah, yeah.
asking if I would want to run for the Los Angeles Track Club, which was not feasible because we were an hour out of LA too. And he said, no, 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 there's a group that trains at the Claremont colleges with Vince Reel, who was Chi Chang's husband, and you could run with Vince. And I'm like, yeah, why not? So went out there. It was Chi Chang, myself, it's a gal named Joanne that ran the hurdles, and Marilyn Newville, who held the world record in the 440. And then all these guys from, Harvey Mudd College and the Claremont colleges. And I got down to a 2:10, 800. And that was
And
the
that
first,
was
go ahead.
your junior year,
That was my junior year,
210?
yeah.
Okay.
And so that was the first year they had CIF for girls. They didn't have a state meet yet for the girls, but they had
What year was this?
this would be 73,
And
spring of
Okay.
73,
was a dirt track?
dirt track. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so most schools didn't even have girls teams, but it was just a matter of doing what I did and then putting on the school jersey and running. I ran the Arcadia, actually won the Arcadia Invitational 2 years in a row, and it was the first year that girls ran Arcadia. Went to Mount Sac, and so the CIF meet, you were not allowed to run two distance races in the same meet.
Yeah.
And so running the mile and the 800, 880 then, with like an hour in between, you weren't allowed to do that. But you could run, in all insanity, the 440 and the 880 with nothing but the 100 meters in between. And so I don't know what possessed me to attempt that, but I won the 440 and the 880 first CIF champion. So my senior year was the first year. Oh, then at the end of that season, Vince Reel retired. So now I didn't have a coach, anything going on until my dad went to the high school coach and asked if he, would let me run with them. And so my senior year of high school, I have varsity letters for cross country and track, but I was on the boys team, and kind of a reversal from what's going on now. Boys, girls, boys. Anyway, and so I ran cross country. I stayed in the top 7. It was only 2 miles, thank goodness. Track season started, and I was doing all right. And we had run about 3 meets, and we get a letter from CIF because somebody was whining about it, I guess, that I was being kicked out of CIF because I trained and raced with boys. And I was not going to be allowed to run this first ever state meet for girls because I trained with the boys. So the school appealed, and they came back and said, okay, here's the deal. You didn't know. So if you will stop training and racing with the boys, we'll let you run. Well, again, talking about having to make choices, I realized, we're in mid-season. How am I going to find a coach, a place to train, meets to run? And here I am in this good situation where I'm being challenged by these guys. So CIF basically said, you have till Monday to let us know if you're a boy or a girl. And you can either run on the boys team and be a boy, or you can stop that. And I thought, well, if I stop this, my chances of, winning the state meet or whatever, I don't know what and my chances of improving, staying in the situation I'm in. So in 1974, as a senior in high school, I decided I was a boy, which takes on a whole different connotation than it does today with my, yeah. But it was, it was good. I managed to, score a point in a couple of dual meets. I ran like 2:10 again, and it was a good thing for me, but it was a disappointment not to get to run that state meet. And so I went from there. I was going to go to Westmont College, become a teacher. And 2 weeks before school started, Vince Reel called and said, I'm coming out of retirement and I'm going to coach at the University of Redlands. And this is, of course, before there was an NCAA for women. It was just that AIAW. And so at the very last minute, with no sound reasoning or whatever, I decided to go to the University of Redlands so that I could run. And lasted 1 year there. But I did improve to 2:07.6. That would have been 75. Totally burned out by the end of the year because starting January 1st, every workout we did was intervals on the track. And but just as a little sidelight, after the school year was over, I went to a meet in Bakersfield and ran my PR 2:07.6, beating Mary for the first time. Well, not the first time, beat her some age grouper, but that was significant. But then I didn't know what I was going to do, where I was going to go from there. And again, my dad stepped in, unbeknownst to me, like when I was in high school and went to the high school coach. He went to the local junior college and walked into Vince O'Boyle's office and said, hey, you know who my daughter is? And, blah, blah, blah. And she's dropping out of college, coming home. She's just floundering. She doesn't seem to know what she wants to do with her life, whatever. But she does like to run, and I'd like to see something stay consistent in her life. Would you coach her? And Vince said, sure. Never having coached a female before, and as soon as my dad walked out the office, wondered what the hell he had just agreed to do. And that relationship lasted until I retired. It was like a marriage, good times and bad, better or for worse, sickness and health. And that was the only coach I had after that.